good coffee. Hey everyone, Eric Batty here, and today I'm going to be going over the gear that I used on our recent crossing Algonquin expedition. Now, just one thing to note that I found quite interesting. Earlier this week, I had this video pretty much done. I've gone over all my gear, I've been editing it on the computer, and I was just about to export it, and I was watching it one last time, and then I noticed something, and it was awful. And that was it. It was my ums, my ahs, and my likes. They were freaking awful. I sat there at 11 o'clock at night and watched this video and was like, oh, it's terrible. I could not believe that my ums and ahs and likes in front of a camera were that bad. Now, that was about a week ago. So over this last week, I've tried to correct that, and I've watched lots of TED Talks and lots of videos on how to get rid of your ums, your ahs, or your likes, or your filler words, they call them. And I was so bad where I actually would talk about a word like my Sony A7r3, and I'd blend it right in that word somehow, and I had no clue how I did that. So over the course of this last week, I've tried to extract that, get rid of it, and it is really, really, really hard. So anyways, back to the gear. So the gear that I used for my recent, there we are, see, the gear that I used on my recent crossing Algonquin expedition that Ryan, Buck, and myself completed last, there it is, another one, that we completed last February. There we go, power of the pause. I took two camera systems. The first was my Sony A7R Mark III and a selection of lenses, and I'll show you those in a minute. My second was my Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. And this camera I've had for just over a year now, and I really got to learn the ins and outs of it. And as an everyday shooting camera, I love it. It is the micro four thirds sensor, so it does struggle a little bit in the low light situations. For everyday use, for run and gun shooting, whether it's video or photo, it's fast, it's really intuitive, it's easy to pull out. I know where everything is that I need it, and I have it set up and configured just the way that I like it. For this trip, you know, Olympus is known for being fairly tough and weather resistant, so that was a big important thing for me because we were putting our camera gear literally through almost the harshest conditions you can imagine. You know, it was minus 30, minus 35 every night, and these cameras, both the Olympus and the Sony, lived in my Pelican case the entire duration of the trip. So they never warmed up, you know, nothing. They literally stayed cold the entire time of the trip until we finished, and I could, you know, warm them up, you know, properly into a warmer environment. So I just didn't want to risk any condensation in the lenses or the sensor and the electronics. And if I had a camera system go down, then, you know, once it's done, it's essentially done, right? Because you know, once it condenses, you take it back outside, it freezes and it's frozen. So I didn't want to do any damage to that. So I literally just left them in the Pelican case to freeze. The batteries I did keep in my chest pocket. So I would take one Olympus battery, one Sony battery, a couple memory cards, or two batteries of each, depending on what I'm planning on using that day. I just keep them in a Ziploc bag inside my jacket. That way the batteries stay warm. So I'd take the camera out of the Pelican case to get a shot, which was a pain in the butt. Pop the battery in, shoot, pull the battery out, put the camera away. So it was a bit of a pain in the butt doing that, and I'll show you more about the Pelican case later. So anyways, yeah, I really love this camera. The 12-40, which is a 24-80 equivalent because it is that micro four thirds sensor. Love that lens. I did have an issue with it on the first day of the trip. The zoom ring slipped. And so I had taken the camera out and I was zooming in to get a shot. And as soon as I went to zoom in, it, you know, from 12 mil to 14 mil, it slipped, and it slipped a couple more times, and then it did zoom in eventually, but the zoom was way off, or the numbers were way off for where it actually was. So I didn't really want to do any more damage to that, so I zoomed back out to 12 mil, and essentially the 12-40 lens became just a 12 mil or 24 equivalent lens for the entire trip. So I didn't really zoom that lens in at all. I did take a telephoto lens for the Olympus system, and this is the Panasonic, the 100-300 variable zoom. So it's a 200-600 equivalent, and I took this one really for any wildlife that we might see. And you know, we were we're essentially crossing the largest wilderness space in southern Ontario and one of the biggest spaces in southern Canada. And we had high expectations for seeing lots of wildlife. We thought we'd for sure see some moose, wolves. We thought we'd see, otters and, all sorts of stuff. And what we seen for wildlife was pretty scarce. The second day we saw one otter, and it could have been a beaver because we were so far away, but it looked like an otter. And then we went about a week where we saw literally nothing, absolutely nothing. The second last day we saw one cow moose. That was the third last day. The second last day we saw one fox, and that was it. And that fox was extremely friendly fox. So, I was able to get some pretty cool shots of that because he was obviously begging for food from us. And so he was super neat. But I really was kind of let down with that we didn't, the fact that we didn't see any more wildlife. I thought for sure in the middle of Algonquin Provincial Park, which is known for its wildlife, we were out there in the middle of winter when there's literally almost nobody else around. We thought for sure we'd see more wildlife, and we didn't. So we were, a little bit, perplexed as to why. So we didn't really get to use this one very much. And I took this one over a bigger zoom just in case that was the case. All right. So in case I didn't get to use it, I didn't want it to, take a great big zoom or a 300 f4 or something that would weigh me down even more. So in my case, it didn't really weigh much, just sitting there. I did use it for some B-roll footage and some shots where I wanted some compression, taking a picture of Ryan and Buck down the swamp or, something like that, but I really didn't use it a ton. Great lens. Yeah, I liked it. So this was a good system. And my Olympus, the 12-40 that I normally have married on the EM1 Mark II, it's actually back at Olympus right now getting fixed. So it's getting that zoom ring fixed there. And hopefully they get back to me shortly. So that was my Olympus system. And I took about 7 or 8 batteries. I think Olympus batteries, I had 7 of them. So I had 7 batteries with me. With my Sony system, I think I had 8 batteries for the Sony camera. And then I did have some external battery power banks to charge these up just because, these are like 125 or 130 bucks a piece. The Olympuses are about $100 a piece. And we were planning on being out there for up to 16 days. So I needed to take enough camera gear, battery, memory for 16 days without being able to plug it into a wall charger. So I figured I would use at most 1 battery a day, right? And that's shooting very conservatively, not wasting it, not reviewing really anything, just shooting and being confident with what I've shot. So I allotted at least 1 battery a day. And I, rather than take 16 of these batteries, which would, you're getting close to, by the time you put tax in there, you're getting close to like $2,500 in batteries for each system. I had enough that I could get by on just what I had. Then I also took some battery power banks. So here's the 2 that I used. Got these off Amazon. The RAV Power, this is a 27,000 milliamp, and the Aqua Power, which is just over a 40,000 milliamp battery bank. And between the 2, I really like this one. It's bigger, it's not much heavier, and they both have the AC DC output. So this one has actually 2 right here, and this one here has the RAV Power has just 1. Now, this one's not substantially smaller as far as power compared to this one. This one was able to charge over double the batteries that this one could. So this one, if I had to buy them again, price-wise, they're about the same, give or take like 20 bucks. I would probably go with the Aqua Power. This one was better. Okay, so I'll show you the setup that I have for my A7R Mark III, how it's set up right now, but it's filming this, so I don't have a camera here that can shoot that, and I'll get one in a minute. So the lenses I took for my Sony system, probably my most favorite lens for the entire Sony system, it's small, it's light, is the 35mm f2.8, the Carl Zeiss Sony lens. And this is, I think it's like new, it's like $800 or $900. It's moderately fast because it's a 2.8 lens. The big thing is it's small and it's light, and I love the 35mm focal length. Now I took this lens mostly as a backup. Right now on my camera I have the Zeiss, the Betis, the 25mm f2, and that's what this is being filmed on, and that was my primary landscape lens, right? I like that 24-25mm range as well. And so that was my primary landscape lens. I used it a lot for filming. This was more as a backup because 1, it's a focal length I know well, It's a lens I know performs, and it doesn't really weigh much. It's very small, it's very light, and if I didn't use it, again, you're talking like not even half a pound. All right, so that was one of the lenses I took. The next lens I used a fair bit actually on my Sony system was the 70-200 f4 telephoto lens. And this lens, yeah, if you've shot this, you know it's a great lens. It's sharp, has very little distortion. It's f4 versus f2.8. f4, it's, you know, I think the compromise is worth it. Doesn't let in as much light in, but it's a lot smaller and it's quite a bit lighter than those 2.8 zooms. And so I use this a fair bit, well, mostly for video. I use it a lot for B-roll, and it gave me that option of zooming in, right? Whereas with the prime, you know, if I put a telephoto prime on, like my 85-1.8, which I'll show you here in a second. This, you know, great lens, super, super sharp, love it. You know, when I put this on the camera, it's -30 out, I'm filming. You know, and if I want to zoom in, or, you know, there's something wrong with the picture and I can't really move, or it's open water or something, there's a reason why I can't move, the telephoto lens, I can zoom in, zoom out. The 85 prime, I couldn't. So I think I used this once or twice on the trip. And again, it was added redundancy. If something happened with this lens, I could get by with this one. So these two lenses were mostly used as backup if something should happen. Love them, and at home here, or if I'm shooting out in the forest or just out for the day or the weekend, I could get by with just taking both of these. For this trip though, I needed to take, because where we were going and the duration of the trip, I needed to take a couple extra lenses just for that redundancy. So the last camera that I took, this was the third one, and this one was used a fair bit. It's the GoPro Hero 6, and the footage is decent from this. It's not as good as the footage from the Sony or the Olympus. The stills from it, they're marginal at best. They're something, they're better than nothing. They're still not as good as an actual real camera. It's great for, you know, if you know GoPro, you know what they're used for, right? You know, you put them in the little head bracket thing, you know, put them on your helmet or whatever you're using, right? If you're climbing or whatever. And they're great for getting those point of view shots. Mine mostly lived in the head mount case, and it mostly stayed in my chest pocket of my jacket. That way it stayed warm. The batteries in the GoPro Hero 6 or any of the GoPros really, the batteries are super small. They are very easily affected by the cold. So, you know, one of these batteries, if I was filming a fair bit with this or taking pictures with it a fair bit, one of these batteries I would barely get through a day using. So that was a bit of a letdown, but they are smaller, and you know, if you make bigger batteries, then the GoPro has to be bigger. So I used it a fair bit. The voice recognition on it was awesome. I love just being able to say, you know, GoPro start recording, GoPro take a photo, you know, GoPro turn yourself off, or GoPro shut off, or whatever it is. So yeah, I really, you know, it's handy. It's a love-hate relationship with it. It did have a tendency to crash, which is fairly widely known. I started doing some research online and found out that, yeah, it's not just me that has a Hero 6 that's crashing or freezing. And so, you know, if you're filming for a few minutes, or, you know, you're doing a couple minutes of footage, you know, you go to turn the actual camera off and it doesn't shut down. So that was a big nuisance, because again, we're in that like -20 in the daytime, -30 at nighttime. Those temperatures, to have to take this out, you know, pull the GoPro out of, or take this off, pull the GoPro out of here, take the battery out to reset it, was super, super annoying. So that was a bit of a pain in the butt, and it was actually very frustrating. But it only happened, I think, like 5 or 6 times, so it could have been worse. But it's something that GoPro should probably fix. So that was the last camera that I took for that, and I took 6 batteries for the GoPro, and then I took the little GoPro power bank that I have here that was able to charge. It says it could charge 4 GoPro batteries. I was only able to charge 3, probably because of the cold. So, and some other little doodads and accessories that I took. Took a camera remote, timer remote. I used this all of 0 times. Doesn't really weigh much though. I thought it was, you know, I had all these grand plans to, you know, get these beautiful night time lapses and whatnot. And after a day, you know, after 8 hours of pulling 120 pounds or 110 pounds of gear across the park, after 8 hours of that, you know, you hit the tent, you get in your nice warm sleeping bag, and the last thing you want to do is be going outside and taking pictures or taking footage, right? You know, it's like, just so cozy and warm, you just want to stay in there, and you know, especially when it's minus 30 out. So I didn't really use this. I did get out to do some night shots, not really for a long time. You know, I'd get out, I'd shoot for maybe 20 minutes or half hour, and that was it, because I was freezing. I didn't want to get back in the nice warm tent. And so for camera support, the main tripod that I took that I've had for a few years is the Gitzo, the 1542, and it's a carbon fiber base or carbon fiber tripod legs on it. I love this tripod system, or I've used it all over North America. I've backpacked with it in the Rockies. It's very, very lightweight. I know it, I like it, I trust it. The tripod head that I took is the Manfrotto pan head. Normally on this I have a Really Right Stuff ball head. Because I was doing more video than photo, I opted for the pan head. And this pan head, it's great, it's smooth, it's fluid. It's still super heavy though. And I think if I had to do this trip again, I'd probably go without the pan head and just deal with it versus carrying this like 4 pounds or whatever it weighs across the park. So that's equivalent to like almost 2 liters of fluid right there. And so I would probably get rid of that. It's great in theory. It's a slug, right? So I'd probably still do the tripod, but I would have just done the ball head and you know, just worked with that, right? Versus this. So that was that tripod. And I did take the Joby, the whatever DSLR Pro something that the Sony is actually sitting on right now, and I'll show you how that's set up. And that was a good tripod to take, where I could, you know, put it on a tree branch or set it on a log, or grab the log or the tree side of the tree or something like that. So that was a really handy little tripod to have. And then just some other things I took, your normal accessories, little blower ball here for cleaning any snow or anything off the lens that was on there. And this little lens pen, I have a bunch of these. I use them a fair bit. It has a little felt doohickey thing here. That's, again, it's really good for cleaning that snow or dandruff or whatever it is off that lens there. And the other side actually has a brush that pops out, and it's really good for cleaning stuff off your lens there. The cloths, the microfiber cloths, are really good. The issue is, you know, when you're out there for a couple weeks and you're not washing your hands get greasy. And so when you touch these, your grease gets on the cloth, and then you take that now greasy cloth and you go wipe your lens, and your lens doesn't actually get any cleaner. You're just smearing a film of grease on there, a very fine film of grease. So I try to avoid these for the lenses. I'll use the microfiber cloth for cleaning the rear screen or wiping the camera off, but I generally don't try to use it on the lens there, just for that main reason. So here's the Pelican case that I used to cross Algonquin Park. It weighs like 10 pounds. It's indestructible. It's waterproof. And then I knew that my camera gear was going to be safe in this thing, strapped to the back of my Polk or my toboggan that I used to cross the park with. It was a love-hate relationship. It was a pain in the butt to work with, but I knew that my gear was going to be safe. And this is the Pelican 1560. Again, I think it weighs like 10 pounds, but it was that added reassurance that my gear was going to be safe. And inside it, I just put 2 of my f-stop ICU camera system compartments here. So I put my camera gear mostly in this one. Power and accessories and battery banks were in that one. So anyways, that was my camera carrying system. So that's it, that's all. That's the camera gear that I used on our recent crossing Algonquin expedition. If you have any questions or comments or any feedback or anything that you think I should know, feel free to leave it in that comment section below. If you found this video interesting, maybe give that a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. I do have some other videos that I am working on that I'm gonna have up shortly. So if you found this interesting, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Wait, don't go yet. After the video is done here, I'm gonna put up a couple of my favorite pictures from the trip. Not a lot of people get to see Algonquin Park, let alone Algonquin Park in winter. Not a lot of people go where we went. So stick around for another minute or two. I hope you enjoy the pictures. If you don't, that's cool too. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.